medical education, affectionately known as the MedEd Grand Rounds. Today's Grand Round addresses a super important topic of well-being. As you know, well-being is one of our focus areas in everyone's trainings, both from the house staff to faculty to all the professionals in the clinical learning and work environment. And so we really value the importance of this presentation. In addition to that, remember, this is one of those areas that's monitored through or vis-a-vis both the resident fellow survey and the faculty surveys as to whether you get any kind of education on this. And this helps meet that requirement as well. So please keep that in mind when you complete those surveys. On that note, we're going to turn it over. I'm going to turn it over to Julie Weisbuch-Alina in a minute, and she can do all the other introductions. But first, we're going to present to you Erica Brown, the Executive Director of the Creighton University Arizona Health Education Alliance. Erica.
Thank you, Dr. Castellanos. Hello, everyone. I just wanted to take this opportunity to briefly introduce to all the residents and fellows a new member of our team. Dr. Dude Coudray has started with the Creighton Alliance School of Medicine as our GME learning specialist. So many of you might be familiar with Nicole Piamonte, who's been helping some of you or your colleagues with, ITE prep or board prep and so forth. And she's going to be transitioning those responsibilities and duties to Dude. So he did reach out to you guys yesterday via email. I know you guys are inundated with email, but he will be following up with your program coordinators, program directors to really understand the unique needs of the individual programs. But if you have any pressing needs and want to start getting together with him to talk about any academic success needs, please do reach out. And like for those of you that are in the room, he's right over there if you want to wave, Dude. And yes, his name is Dude. So thank you guys. And then I'll turn it over to Julie.
Thank you all, Erica, and Dr. Castellanos. Thank you all for being here. I appreciate it. And we are going to talk about well-being. And one of the ways that is an effective way to talk about well-being is through stories. And I have a very esteemed panel of folks that are willing to share some of their stories. And so we're going to start there. We're just going to jump into our well-being panel. We're going to, after our panel is concluded, we're going to do some resourcing. So just giving you some information around well-being resources. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump in, and that also means give me just a second because I'm going to turn around the camera here so we can see our folks. All right. Okay, perfect. So we need to. And we are going to jump into our first panelist, who is Dr. Ross Bremner. He is the Executive Director of the Norton Thoracic Institute and the William Filcher Chair for the Thoracic Disease and Transplantation at the Norton Thoracic Institute. At Dignity Health, St. Joe's Hospital and Medical Center. He holds professorships with Creighton School of Medicine, as well as the University of Arizona College of Medicine. And Dr. Bremner is going to share his story around burnout, and I will toss it over to him to go ahead and get started.
Oh.
There
we go. So if you use, I guess, those of you who want to see the back of my head. I guess, I'm going to share a story that I first shared probably about 10 years ago, and have repeatedly shared it. But at the time when I did share it, it was a time when the concept of burnout was really not accepted as something that we needed to talk about in medicine. And I think we've come a long way in the last decade, but we're still not where we really should be, I think, both in the world of medical education as well as in the world of medicine. And I think that you guys are, the people that can be the agents of change. Now, my story started probably about 10 years ago. I've been here about 10 years. We started the lung transplant program And we were sort of working really hard, actually quite successful. And I found one morning I just basically just was completely depleted. I just did not want to get out of bed. I did not want to come to work. I'd lost all the energy that I'd had on, for sort of my entire career. Like all of you, I was, an overachiever through most of my life, always trying to sort of achieve more, do more, help my patients the best way I could. But one morning I just really felt completely depleted, and it was not something I didn't know who I didn't know who to speak to at the time. Our transplant program was incredibly busy. The program down at the U of A, Tucson, had gone on hiatus, and we'd absorbed all of their patients. So it was about the time when we actually became the busiest lung transplant program in the entire country. So we were working in alternate hours with obviously very, very sick patients. And then, okay, is that better? Yeah. So working really, really long hours with very sick patients. And then, unfortunately, I got some tough news. My brother was diagnosed with an anaplastic large cell lymphoma, which, for those of you who don't know, is kind of a nasty beast in adults that has a very poor prognosis overall, despite chemotherapy and even stem cell transplantation. He was in South Africa. I was trying to help him from here. At that time, our administration had changed, and the administrative body was trying to change everything that we had developed in the North Thoracic Institute. And I was honestly completely depleted. I brought up the topic with my wife, saying, I'm done. I just feel like I need to leave medicine or find another career. He suggested that I get some help from a counselor or therapist that she had used previously to help her process the passing of one of her parents. And, this is not something that we do lightly, right? Especially if you're a leader, you don't want to be seen as being weak in any way. To ask for help is weakness, is the adage, right? So what I did is I crept out of the hospital. I got the last appointment in the day, like sort of 5:30 in the afternoon, and I went and saw this therapist. I paid cash because I really didn't want any credit card or paper trail behind me. But it really was not very helpful, and I didn't follow up. And then on a conversation with with a friend who previously been an administrator, he suggested that I look into seeing a coach. And a coach, of course, is a much more acceptable thing. We can go and get coached. We've all been coached all our lives. And fortunately, over, a period of about 18 months of really intensive work with a coach, I kind of realized, that I had been in a place of what we now recognize as burnout. So, I'd like to just ask all of you guys here, are any of you in burnout now? So we've got a couple of honest people. Have any of you ever experienced burnout? So I will tell you that if you haven't, or you don't think you have, you will. I mean, the way that medicine is, that there will be times when you will feel depleted. And fortunately, now we're able to have a conversation about it. So, I was able to sort of peel back the layers of the onion of the things that really were, causing me to be down. But it was a tough time in my life. I mean, I was completely anhedonic. I would watch a movie with my kids and wouldn't be present at all. I couldn't actually accept gratitude from my patients. In fact, I recognize this because I remember walking down the hallway and a patient with a mask on. In those days before COVID, a patient with a mask was a lung transplant patient. The patient stopped me and said, Dr. Bremner, I'm so-and-so, so-and-so. You did my transplant 3 years ago, and I'm doing so fantastic. I just want to thank you. And I just waved him off and said, it's what we do. Without actually being able to accept the gratitude or have a meaningful interaction with a grateful patient. And I realized this because when my brother was ultimately cured from his cancer, I called his oncologist in South Africa to give him my heartfelt gratitude. And his response was identical. The response was, you know what, it's what we do. You know, I chronicled all of this 1 minute. Chronicled all this in an address to the Western Thoracic a few years ago. You can find it entitled Salutogenesis, which really means well-being. But I found 3 things that we can talk about in an open forum that were helpful to me, and those were what I call the 3 C's: connectedness, connection between our friends and each other, creativity, doing something for yourself, and then ultimately compassion, which I think is probably the greatest antidote to burnout. So that's a sort of summary of my burnout, which was a 3-year-long process, I guess. And I imagine that all of you can relate, and most of your faculty that you talk to can relate to some of these, and you'll hear more stories as well. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Bremner. I have heard that story and I love hearing that story. So thank you for sharing that with us. We are now going to hear from Dr. Komp, who is over at Valleywise. Dr. Komp is an associate program director for the Creighton University School of Medicine Emergency Medicine Residency at Valleywise Health. He participates as a leader, mentor, and advocate for wilderness medicine as well as emergency medicine medical education, with experience lecturing, teaching locally, regionally, and nationally. And Dr. Komp is going to share some of his story as well.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So that was an incredible introduction. My name is Jeff. I'm one of the APDs over here in the ED. I'm sure I've inflicted myself on many of you here in this room. I think what I really want to talk about is some of the skills that I use to battle a lot of the sort of aggregate emotional trauma that we all face. You know, to be totally honest, humans really aren't designed to see the things that we see. We've seen immense and terrific sorrow and have cried with patients and have cried by ourselves for our patients. And something that you need to make sure that you are doing is figuring out ways that you can take care of yourself. I mean, obviously, I'm very emergency medicine. I came back from an ice climbing trip in Colorado 2 weeks ago. But everyone has their own things. If it's reading, if it's exercise, if it's spending time with your loved ones. Finding out what that is independent of medicine is so incredibly important. But you guys have heard that before. So something that I started doing that really helped me during my probably 3rd year of residency, to back up a little bit, I was a very weak resident in a sense of my academics, my confidence, and I really had a hard time. And that was one of my big first areas and issues with burnout was I was always afraid. I was always afraid that I was getting judged. I was always afraid I was going to do something wrong. And I had the things that I enjoyed doing, right? I mean, I love running. I love being outside. I love nature, but I was finding that I wasn't getting that same kind of benefit and that same kind of experience that I had been from the things that made me who I was. And that was one of the most sad portions for me in my training was when I started feeling like I was losing who I was in sort of the work-life integration, because there's not a balance, guys, you know that. There's not always a balance. But what I found was this idea of, and what I started calling it was kind of like my very hyperacute sort of shift defibrillation. I mean, if we think about defibrillation, right, we're taking that chaotic electrical energy, we're applying another electrical energy, and then we're straightening it out. So for me, when there are times that I'm really, really struggling and challenging, I go back to the things that I enjoy doing. And that's the baseline. And one of the things that really helped me early on were rituals. And the thing I still do to this day is every time I leave my shift and I walk to my car, I ask myself 2 questions. I say, I think of a time that I helped someone that shift, and I think of a time that I laughed or I smiled. And early on, when I started doing that, I would write it down, and I would look at those, and I would read, and I would say, oh, again, early on in residency, it was, classically some of the bigger medical cases that I would say, hey, those are the people that I helped. But to be honest, now, frankly, it's working with a lot of you. When I get to see you down in my ED and we talk about a surgical case or a medical case, or with my own residents, when we talk about a resuscitation or something else that we've done, that's the person that I've helped that day. And yes, we take care of patients and we help patients, sometimes with the medical stuff, and sometimes just by sitting and listening and holding their hand. Often, sometimes just by sitting and listening and holding their hand. And then if you guys have worked with me on shift, you guys know that I'm a little bit of I have resting Labrador face. So I'm a little bit of a giggly guy. I brought a dad joke of the day calendar to work. So that's in the ED. So if you're downstairs, make sure you grab one of those. So what I found was, when I was working on finding the thing that made me laugh or smile, it became a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? When I started thinking like, hey, I know at the end of the day, I'm going to need to tell myself how I helped someone. I'm going to need to tell myself how I smiled or how I laughed. My mindset slowly shifted, and there will always be bad days. I still have them. I had one last week that was really, really challenging. But when I go back to the walk to my car and I say, all right, who did I help and how did I smile? It allows me to transition. So bringing that back to the things that I love doing, I was finding when I go for the run, I was still thinking about the patients. I was still thinking about the things that were hard. And by allowing yourself to have a little bit of that post-shift defibrillation, it helped me transition to the next thing. And that was spending time with my family. That was being with my children, being with my wife, going out and going for a bike ride and enjoying outside, rather than feeling like I was taking everything home from work. So that would be my ask to you. Yes, the thing that everyone will always say is, know what you love about yourself and the things that you enjoy doing, but also be intentional in how to switch into that mode. That's something that we don't talk enough about. How do you make sure that you can actually get to that point where you say, now I'm enjoying life. I'll get back to the hospital. I'll get back to clinic. I'll get back to the patients that I don't know what's happening to them. I'll get there. But for now, this is time for me. So keep that in mind as you guys are training. We're always here for you. If I'm in the ED, I'm always here for you as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Comp. I appreciate that. And I want to just share that if any of you have been reading the wellbeing newsletters, this resonates. I talk about gratitude a lot and how showing gratitude actually changes your brain chemistry to seek out positive before you see the negative. And I think that that's along the same lines with what Dr. Comp was saying, of like, find those spots of joy, find those spots of gratitude, and continue doing that in your everyday. So thank you so much, Dr. Comp, for that. We're going to transition back over to St. Joe's, and we have Dr. Harder with us. Dr. Harder is a faculty physician with Dignity Health Medical Group in the Department of Internal Medicine at St. Joseph's Hospital and Medical Center. Dr. Harder is double board certified in internal medicine and obesity medicine. She's the Associate Program Director and Vice Chair of Wellness for the Department of Internal Medicine, and is the Clinical Skills Co-Director for the Creighton University School of Medicine, Phoenix. And I am going to toss it over to Dr. Harder.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you, everybody. And I think some of you have heard my story of burnout a few times. Erica, you probably have heard it 10 times, and I apologize for that. But I have to give a little bit of a background to why I do what I do and why I am at the place in my career. And it's all like goes back to 2016 when I was, like some of you here, young mother, and I was just starting out here at St. Joe's with a lot of excitement. I trained here, some of you know that. And as many of you in the room, I was very tempted and saying yes to every project that was coming my way, because I was younger in my career and I had all these ambitions. I did not know how to say no, had no boundaries. Somebody offered a project, I said yes. Somebody offered a student to work with, said yes. Somebody offered to go for a extra whatever, I said yes. Said yes to my kids' like home projects. said yes to our church projects. Like anybody said yes, I wanted to be that mom who did it all. Mom or a doctor who did it all. And one of the big lessons I've learned was you cannot do it all at any given stage in your life. You have to pick your battles. And depending upon where you are in your career, if you're early stage career position, your goals are very different from mid-age and late, late stage positions, because your family dynamic is different. Your kids are at different stages. You are at a different stage. Your desires and ambitions change every few years, and you have to stay very true to those desires. In medicine, there's a seduction of like wanting to go to that next level. And you will realize very soon you get that next level, and now you're looking at the next level. You feel like that level would bring you all the satisfaction, gratification, and very quickly that's not enough. Then you need more, and you need more. And in 2016, I remember I was at a stage where that was the first year that we did not actually do any holiday cards. And that was something very different and odd for our family, because every Christmas I take a lot of pride in making a holiday photos and sending it out to everyone, especially my parents in India, who don't get to see my kids every day. And that was the year I did not make cards, because I was, like Dr. Brunner said, completely depleted. Every day coming to work was a dread. It was like somebody was sitting on my chest, telling me I could not move one more day like that. It wasn't physical pain. It was literally emotional fatigue, complete exhaustion. And so it was Christmas Eve of 2016. I walked out in my backyard. I had an ugly cry because I felt trapped. I didn't feel like I could do anything different than medicine. I felt like I was failing as a mom. My home front was not great, and everything was kind of falling apart. And I walked out and I saw my two little boys, Max and David. They were very young. They had dressed themselves in Christmas colors, and they were running around laughing. And I just went out, pulled my phone, took a couple of photos because I wanted to send something to my parents. And so took a couple of photos, and Max looked at me, and he was only like 3 years old. And he whispered in my older son's ears, and he said, "Mommy looks sad, let's go tickle her." He didn't realize that was not a whisper, I heard it, right? And I was so bothered even like that, that I looked at them and said, "No, please, please don't." And they chased me down, they dropped me on the ground, and they tickled me. And I never forget that moment. I was staring up in this blue sky, and I was crying, and I was laughing all at the same time. It still brings me little goosebumps, because I remember that was the moment I realized something was wrong. I needed to change the status quo. And I did. I got up and I looked at the boys, and the boys were like, "He tickled you, she's laughing." And I realized that that was the most important thing to me, that I wasn't able to serve at that point. I wasn't a present mother. And that wasn't aligned to what I needed at that time in my life. And I had to kind of adjust a lot of things. And so one of the things that I realized in that moment was I can say no to projects. I don't need to be climbing up the ladder of academic medicine at that time. I needed to focus on patient care and then my family. That was the only thing I needed at the time. And then once the kids grow up, perhaps I can focus on academia in a different way. Maybe I can take over more projects, but that was not the right time. And I was doing way too many things. So number one, learn to say no, like boundaries. Like what matters to you is important. Writing them down, like what matters to you. I did go to our pastor in our church, and I found a counselor. I'm like, I need a counselor. I need to sit down and talk about all these things that are going on in my mind. I was very open about it. I would talk about it to my colleagues, and that actually helped, because when I started talking to my colleagues in my department, I found out that several of them were feeling like that. It wasn't just me. I wasn't in a bubble. It wasn't a silo. It wasn't isolated. Many people were feeling like that. And so a couple of things that I took away from that incident was, number one, connect yourself to people like yourself. Talk about it. That doesn't mean overshare in a bunch of, oh, 1 minute. It doesn't mean that you will share your story with everyone, but find those right people that you can actually connect and communicate with. Don't hesitate to ask for help. Counseling is powerful. It actually helps you center. And align your goal with with your actions. And every 5 years, your goals change and accept that. The academic world is very, very tempting. And don't fall for that. You gotta define your success based on what you want in life and not based on what the system tells you. With the system, when you follow the system, you will fall in the trap. That's basically my big takeaway.
Thank you, Dr. Harder. That's a poignant story, and I appreciate your vulnerability and your willingness to share. We are going to go back to Valleywise, and we're going to hear from Dr. Budapalli. Dr. Budapalli is the program director of the Internal Medicine Residency Program at Creighton University in Phoenix. He's an associate professor with Creighton University School of Medicine in Phoenix, as well as University of Arizona College of Medicine in Phoenix. He practices hospital medicine at St. Joseph Hospital and Medical Center, as well as Valleywise Medical Center. So thank you, Dr. Budapalli. We appreciate it.
Great. Thank you all. And thank you, Julie, for giving this opportunity. So yeah, this auditorium looks great. It almost looks like the medicine residency orientation. So there's so many of our residents and the others welcome. So, but when Julie reached out to me, I thought this was a great topic. It was fantastic. And now when I see someone like our mentors and others like Dr. Bremner, Dr. Harter, and Dr. Comp, speaking about their vulnerability, I think, it's a great place. So Julie and me were talking about, while they spoke about burnout and others, I just wanted to speak about my story, more about physical illness and, how times have changed, how generations have, and how our approach should. So I asked myself, what story do I share? And I think it goes back to my medical school days. So these are many, many moons ago in the 90s. And, in India, you enter medical school when you're 18 years old. So you get that enthusiasm and others. And I still remember I was the first person to go to medical school in my entire apartment complex, filled with very, very talented kids and others. I still remember when I came back from that, interview and acceptance meeting, I was lifted by all my friends on their shoulders and carried. And, you feel like you're on the top of the world, but little do you know that it carries a lot of expectations. And to keep up those expectations becomes really challenging. At 18 or 20, you don't. And so when I entered clerkships, that is the first time you work in roles very similar to a resident. You do everything what a resident does because of the staffing and the system and others. Unfortunately, there are no guardrails, and there were none, no duty hours. And I don't think I kept any guardrails to myself either, because I thought I could achieve the world. And, the expectations and believing that failure was no option. So I worked through, day in, day out, because that's what I, thought I was compassionate. And I still remember boasting about, the number of hours I would work, 96 hours. Or if someone asked me, do you remember when you went home? I thought it was a matter of pride. Till suddenly I started, having a fever and a cough. And again, when you're in the 20s, you brush it off, taking something over the counter, and it got worse. And I still brushed it off and never even thought of, stopping work. Days continued, and I think weeks continued till a point where I think I almost lost consciousness doing a procedure, doing thoracentesis. I lost, and still I didn't show up. I said, that might be weakness and this thing, and went home, and eventually went, for my cousin sister's wedding, where, someone said, why don't you get it checked out? And I thought nothing could go wrong. I could still, play tennis, although I was not able to walk. And, suddenly I'm like, let's check. And the surprise was the chest X-ray showed pneumonia all over, pleural effusion. And I still remember this was a very well-known pulmonologist in that town and said this could actually be cancer. So they did thoracentesis, and what bothered me the most was I did Torah on someone the previous day, and I was undergoing the same procedure the next day. And that's something that still sticks to me. It's 20, 25 years back. Uh, and, just like anyone young, you recover physically, but the after effects are something that I carry today. And so that's what I wanted to talk about. For the first 3 months, I remember I did not want to see a patient. I lost all compassion. I lost all the hunger. Everything wrong that happened in those 3 months were blamed towards medicine. Uh, Thankfully, it was, the system and, the easy electives and others that bailed me out. And it took a lot to get back the same mojo and compassion. Um Over years, I still struggle. I don't think, I have recovered completely, and I don't think I've gotten better either. I don't think I practice what I preach. And so my advice would be not to make the same mistake that I have done or many like me have done. You want to listen to your body. Listening to your body does not make you a lesser physician. In fact, it's quite the opposite. It actually helps you treat your patients, helps you get your patients get better. And so to my point, I would suggest that, uh, as you go through, try not to forget about taking care of your own body. Get those appointments on time. You have the academic leadership here and everywhere in Creighton would absolutely be on par with what you want. We will make sure that we get you that support. The key here is for you to first realize. And if you're someone like me in the room, because I know there are people here in this room who are like me, then start respecting and learning the people who are able to draw the line. I think sooner the better. So that's my little story, and thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Fudupalli. I appreciate your story, and I think I can resonate with some of it, so I appreciate that. Last but certainly not least, we have Dr. Kwasnika. Dr. Kwasnika has been at the Barrow Neurological Institute since 2000, when she returned to Phoenix to become the Director of Brain Injury Rehabilitation. She was raised in Arizona and earned her undergraduate degree in political science with honors from the University of Arizona, and attended medical school at Northwestern University in Chicago. She completed her residency at Northwestern University Rehabilitation Institute of Chicago, and then did a fellowship also at Northwestern. And Dr. Kwasnika is going to share a little bit of a story as well.
So I am not going to tell you I've never been burnt out. I should start right there. I did for 25 years. I could probably tell you all of the lows, and then if I don't tell you all the lows, I'm just trying to pretend that they're not there. I wanted to take a little bit different approach is how can you get help and what are the available options to get help when you start to question out about yourself. And to go back about 4 or 5 years ago, I was approached to become the chair of the Physician Wellness Committee here. And my first answer was, no offense, Ross, but was there's nothing worse to me than telling me you have to do like some sort of wellness retreat when I could be doing 5 other things or be with my family. Like I am like kind of like in my mind, if I can get out of work and be home and with my family and exercising and doing all the things I enjoy, that's where I find my joy. So my first answer was no, and then they explained to me that that committee is actually the committee that helps physicians when they do run into some troubles here. They are physicians that are referred either from medical staff, from the board, et cetera, and that we actually kind of help them understand that they do have support for the medical center. And I was like, oh, okay, well, maybe that's a little bit more my speed. I'll try that. And, I was struck with how many people who are our colleagues who are walking through the hallways, on any given day, that you're interacting with their fantastic physicians, may have had times where things were hard and things happened. And originally I thought this was the committee where we talk to people about their DUIs. And that does happen. And, I have to say, every story you hear from a physician, about that, you realize that could have been me. I could have been really tired at the end of a Friday. I could have just been like told by my friends, oh, come on, like go out with us, it'll be one drink, it's no big deal. I've been on since the night before. These are stories that could happen to any one of us. And so that was kind of eye-opening. But then the approach of the committee is not to punish the physician. It is not to make the physician admit to something that they don't feel. It is really to tell them that there is support here. There is somebody who you can come to if you're having struggles. There is people who understand that this could happen to anybody, and it really is a very, very supportive committee. The second half of that committee is the support for physicians when they do get kind of, when you're burned out, you can follow kind of two pathways. One is the pathway where you say yes to everything, but you really don't want to do anything. The other is where you can be irritable, upset, snappy, and that can be picked up by your colleagues, by staff, and it can be reported. And, I think it's very important that we as physicians have a place where we can really talk about those things and know that it is a place where you can really talk about how you got there. And know that there is help, that we've helped physicians problem solve through getting support, maybe finding somebody that they could share a call with so they're not on call all the time. Maybe looking at other ways that you can make sure that, you know, when that pager or tire connector, whatever it is going off incessantly, you just, at some point in time, you're kind of like, I'm just gonna upset, I forgot my phone, I was in my bag, and I went upstairs and I don't know where it is. And, you know, ways that you can problem solve through that. It doesn't solve all burnout. There are always going to be things, we do very hard things, and we're in positions with people, with their families and that, where we're expected to know everything, and we don't always know everything. And even if we knew everything, sometimes the outcome isn't the way you want the outcome to be. But if we can help each other and support each other, and I found that this is actually a very supportive environment. And I've been shocked at the amount of times I can get a text back from a physician we helped to just problem solve, or maybe figure out, you come into a new organization and you want to do something and you feel like you're really good at it and you're getting resistance from people. Let's figure out how you work through that. Usually when we are stressed, when we are burnt out, we tend to not be able to see all the solutions. And sometimes just having that opportunity to see the solution is very valuable. So I would let you know that they don't view it as, there are places here at the medical center who can help you. Do not always view them as places where you get sent to if you're in trouble. It is really just to help you problem solve through and figure out, you know, how things can be better. Nobody likes to work in an environment where they're always irritated. It doesn't matter whether you're working in medicine or retail or anywhere else. You want to work in an environment where you are excited about coming to work.
Thank you so much for that, Dr. Kwasnika. I will follow up with everybody to get information on how to outreach to the wellness committee afterward. So we have a couple of minutes, and I want you to turn to the folks around your table, find a couple of people, and I want you just to quickly either share something that was an aha moment or something that resonated with you within some of these panelists, or something that maybe you do to help mitigate your burnout or manage some of the things in your life that might be helpful to somebody else. So we have a couple of minutes to do that, and then we'll come back and I'll share some resources.
It was 4 years. Yeah. Well, we meet if we're asked to, or every 6 months.
Is it when you have someone?
Yeah. Yeah.
And kind You need to call Magellan and you need to reauthorize those 8 sessions. So even if you were using BetterHelp, you're gonna wanna get that reauthorized so you can continue to utilize free sessions, okay? Also, there is United Healthcare Network. So those of you that are utilizing the benefits through Creighton University, you can access behavioral health services. Also just note that deductibles and co-insurances may apply to that, but it is available and it is relatively easy to access. Okay. Maybe. There we go. Additional resources. So available to everybody is what's called Therapy Assistance Online. There's, it's basically a psychoeducational space. So you can access that, learn about different topics. A lot of them are skill-based. So you can learn different skills, and they're covers mental health, well-being, and substance use issues. To access that, there's a website right there. This is all available. All of these resources are available on the well-being website through the Alliance. So you don't have to memorize any of this. It is all very applicable and very easy. The Calm Health app is a program. I'm sure you all have heard of the Calm Health app. There is a cost associated. However, if you do utilize the United Healthcare benefit system, this is offered to you for free. So once you log in, you can go to behavioral health, and then there's a couple clicks and it'll get you access to the Calm Health app for free. The Substance Use Treatment Locator. So all you have to do is text your zip code to Help For You, and they will get you some local resources. And then this goes back to what Dr. Bremner was saying about coaching. So there is a system, it's called the Volunteer Physician Certified Life Coaches. It is a national program. It's free coaching and completely confidential. So if counseling is not the direction you want to move through, start with coaching and see if that's a great avenue to kind of get started in some of those conversations. Again, completely free, easy to access. I think all of you know this, but if you don't, each one of the hospitals does have a gym. So at St. Joseph's Hospital, it's in the basement near the resident sleep rooms and near the chaplain offices. So you follow the signs down there. No restriction on hours. You just have to swipe your badge for access. At Valleywise, on the 3rd floor of the CHC near the cardiovascular clinic, they have this really great gym as well. However, the only kind of hoop over there is to visit employee health or human resources to sign a waiver, and then you'll get a little sticker that'll go on your badge, which will let the folks that work there know that you have access to that. But that's available 24/7. The only reason it wouldn't be is if there were a lot of patients in there. So patients always would come first, but complete access. So that was a new resource to me. So I was really happy to be able to share that with you all. Okay, and then fatigue management. We're just going to talk about a couple of things. I know a lot of this you've heard. So physical signs of fatigue, yawning, drooping eyes, drooping eyelids, rubbing your eyes, reduced motor skills, involuntary head nodding. Some of the mental pieces are a lowered attention span, lowered alertness, poor judgment, poor communication, emotional, irritable, withdrawn, unmotivated, and giddiness. Everybody's going to see this differently and they're going to feel this differently. I tend to feel it in the emotional kind of category first. I get really irritable, not particularly nice to my family in those moments. And that's how I feel it, but everybody kind of knows their own body. And also, I would say recognize these things within your fellow residents and fellows. And if you're seeing something, maybe kind of have a side conversation or just bring it to their awareness that you're noticing this. Some tips and tricks for fatigue management. Use your call rooms if you can. I know sometimes that's not always the top of the availability. However, if you can, those 20 to 30-minute power naps are ideal. Eat well, so avoid those heavy meals. That'll help you sleep better. And if possible, avoid starting call with a sleep deficit. So if you can come in with better sleep before overnight call, that's helpful. This was also really new to me, this idea of sleep inertia. Right after waking, I know we've all felt this, where you wake up and you're like, for 10 or 15 minutes, you're kind of rubbing your eyes, you're kind of having the I'm still waking up kind of feeling. However, in cases like you all, if you're planning to have that 20, 30-minute nap, and and you're gonna have that power nap, one thing that you can do is actually have caffeine right before you fall asleep or right before you go into that nap. Because that means after that 20 or 30-minute nap, that caffeine's gonna kick in, so you're gonna wake up and you're not gonna have that idea of grogginess right when you wake up, because that caffeine's gonna start to kick in. So that was new information for me, so I wanted to share that with you all too. Also, safe ride home. I'm hopeful that you've all heard about this, and this is just a refresher, but I'm going to say this. But just to note that between the hours of 6 a.m. and 11 a.m. is probably when you're going to feel most tired. And if you are, and if you're getting off shift, please use our Safe Ride Home program. We want you to use it. It's a resource that we hope that you use if you need to. The way that that Safe Ride Home program works is that you are going to call a Lyft or an Uber. You're going to use your own app on your phone. You're going to call your Lyft or Uber. You're going to get home, sleep. You're going to use the Lyft or Uber to get back to your car the next day. Once you've done that, you're going to submit your receipts to your program manager, and they will work through the reimbursement process. Again, we want you to use this. If you're feeling tired, if you're feeling ill, if you take public transportation and public transportation is done for the night, please utilize this. It's what it's for. Okay. So I was thinking about, what can I tell you? What can I tell you that's not going to be some of the same things that you've heard over and over again? What's going to be useful? And for me, that felt like, with your limited time and your busy schedules, can I give you something that will help you fall asleep more quickly? So you can best utilize the time that you do have. Some of this is going to be things that you've heard before. Some of it may be new. So guided imagery, think of a peaceful setting. What helps, because this can help prepare your mind and body for sleep. So it can just help kind of reset your body and tell it that it's time for sleep. Meditation, same idea. Practice meditation techniques that can help you fall asleep more quickly, reduce anxiety, prepare your body for sleep. And peaceful music. Listening to music can block out that external noise and help you relax. You are going to know what works best for your body. I can't fall asleep to music, even if it's really light and peaceful. It's not the technique that I use. I know that. So it could be a combination of these. Maybe you're meditating with peaceful music. Maybe you're using guided imagery while you're meditating. So whatever kind of combination of this works for you, that's what you use. And you can experiment with that. So this was also really interesting to me when I was kind of doing a little bit of quick searching, this idea of a military method. And this was designed for soldiers that are out in the field that are going to be in compromising positions and need to fall asleep quickly, and they need to get there fast. And so this is a method that they developed, and it's supposed to help soldiers fall asleep within 2 minutes. So find a comfortable position, relax each part of your face. So starting with your face and just consciously relax that. Moving into kind of your arms, resting them at your side, drooping your shoulders again. So that's relaxing those muscles. Take a couple deep breaths, relax your chest and torso, relax that lower half of your body, working through your hips. So just very consciously relaxing your body. You can utilize visualization in this setting as well. So again, this is designed for potentially soldiers that are sitting up against the wall. They may be laying down or lying down, but either way, this might be something that could be helpful. And then the last, sorry, a little typo here, sorry. The last little bit of advice or tip or trick would be this idea of progressive relaxation. So lying down, closing your eyes, inhaling and exhaling slowly, tensing all of the muscles in your face for 10 seconds. And I mean, like, really tensing them, letting them go, and then taking a couple of deep breaths. Then you're going to do your shoulders with the same format. So you're going to tense your shoulders really, really hard. You're going to release it, take a couple deep breaths. Then you're going to move all the way down your body. So you're going to take each muscle group. You're going to tense it really quickly for 10 seconds, release it. And then you're going to do that all the way through your body. Of course, omit anything that feels uncomfortable or causes pain. Okay. Any questions about any of that at this point? Okay. So the last thing I'm going to say is we do not give you surveys just to give you surveys. We understand survey fatigue is real. It's not our intention. Each survey is carefully curated and pared down to be as not repetitive as possible. The purpose really is so we as GME can learn from you what the actual challenges are versus what we perceive these challenges to be. We do look at both qualitative and quantitative, so anything you do right in there, we do look at and we do take into account. That being said, I have a QR code with a survey that we really want to understand your thoughts, needs, and desires around mental health support and how we best can do this. Can't make broad promises, but we definitely want to understand what you all need from us. So if you have a second, please scan that, even if you need to take it with you. I'll send it out again after this as well, but please, this is, I can't tell you how immensely helpful this would be to us. So please do that. And then that is everything. So my information is up here. My name is long and complicated, but you can also email wellbeing.az@Creighton to get to me. And then again, just note that these are all the resources that I discussed are all available on our website, plus a multitude of others. Okay. Here's your check-in. This is the thing you're looking for. See, now all the phones come out, right? Okay. And I'll put this back up too if we need it, okay? And then the last thing is survey. Again, this is just a feedback survey really quick. This is so we know how you received this grand rounds, what we've done well, what we can do better next time. This just gives us really great feedback so we can continue to improve and meet you where you are at. That's all I have, my friends. Thank you.
Remind everybody that there is an ice cream park at 1:30 in kindergarten.
I think it's fine.
Maybe it's right now.
Thanks, Dan. That's all. I can tell you.
She said that that's left standing there.
Ice cream always.
Ice cream.